Welcome to the Melting Pot. We represent an institution that prides itself on the representation of multiple nations and provides a space for students to embrace and exhibit their culture. Yet even with all this diversity on campus, students still have a tendency to gravitate to their own race.
I feel like there are pockets of integration where people like to claim that they are intermingling with different people of different ethnicities, but I think when it does happen, it's like particularly superficial for the most part.
Yeah, I think that we have a lot of events, I'm thinking like large cultural events, that take steps towards integration, but we don't do enough to sustain that throughout the year and sustain that throughout communities. So it's not just one moment, but that we have sustained integration and sustained sort of understanding in those initiatives across a year.
Also, within that transition into like a more diverse like student population, like people come from very different high schools. Some people come from high schools where they've never seen a person of color their entire like high school career, or in fact their entire life. And then if they do have like a spot of color, once they are integrated onto a campus where there are other people who don't look like them, it can be kind of jarring, and like that uncomfortableness creates, I don't want to say a fear, but like fear for lack of a better term right now. It could be the best term, and I just don't realize it's the best term yet. But that fear creates pockets of people who stick to what they know and don't want to step out of that zone. I don't know. They don't want to step out of that zone into like integrating different spaces.
It's hard to tell someone to not, join a group where people are very similar to them and people enjoy and celebrate the same things. But I think just from my personal experience coming to Duke, I didn't really have an idea of what like Greek life was. I didn't really know, like what the story was behind sororities and fraternities, except for kind of media representation or pop culture representation of it. And I think what was shocking to me was seeing that there were groups that were like colloquially known as like black sororities or Asian fraternities. And I think that was kind of shocking because, you think that you are coming to a very diverse.
Or like the discourse in the classroom can kind of silence people in the classroom because the professor might not necessarily be, I guess, aware of the things that they're saying, how that can silence individuals in the classroom. Just like a simple comment, or even in the like who is chosen to speak in the classroom can like further silence people beyond that being picked on.
Mm-hmm. Just going back to the, I don't think Greek life is the source of the problem, but I do think that like it's an example of where it manifests itself. I definitely think if there was to be a solution, it would have to be, I think the target population is definitely known in the sense that it's going to be freshmen. I think it's hard for me to imagine having a solution or an initiative suddenly, when you're a junior, having someone come up to you and kind of explain the situation and say, you need to suddenly change, what you're doing. You have to be aware that you're not integrating with other cultures.
So important for facilitators and professors to be aware, and a lot of times I feel like they're not. And be aware of like the role they need to play in actively maintaining a safe space, especially in seminars and recitation sections and moments in which it's not just a lecture, but that you're expecting participation, that these facilitators and professors and TAs and people who are in charge of having conversations and clubs are aware of their need to continually maintain a safe space, because it takes work.
This isn't a Duke issue. It's a problem that you kind of see, I think, not just in universities, but just in our society in general.
Duke and other institutions value diversity, but there's this lack of understanding that diversity alone or integration in name alone isn't